Welcome to another edition of Begley's Mailbag on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley, SNY's NBA insider, and we're here to take your questions on the Knicks offseason and the rest of the NBA. We're going to get it started here with Avery Torf. Avery wants to know, do you see the Knicks making a trade for a star in the offseason? I'm not here to make any bold predictions. It's still mid-June here. We still have a couple of weeks until the offseason, but I do think it's more likely than not that the Knicks make that kind of move, and I think that for two reasons. One, Knicks Governor James Dolan is on the record as saying that one of the reasons he wanted Leon Rose to run his basketball team was to attract star talent to New York. Now, the Knicks signed, in my mind, a star in Jalen Brunson last offseason, but I think that the job's not done with regard to adding top talent. And the other reason is you look at this new CBA, and I was talking to ESPN front office NBA insider Bobby Marks, and he said that there are stipulations that come into place with this new CBA next summer that make it much more onerous, much more difficult to execute, significant trades. So he sees this summer as kind of a grace period where teams are going to be able to execute those bigger trades, look to execute those bigger trades, whether it's a big money player, getting off salary, things of that nature. So those are the two reasons why I think it's more likely than not that the Knicks do go after a big trade this offseason. But I will say this too, the situation in Milwaukee bears watching. I think a lot of teams are keeping an eye on the Bucks with regards to Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's got an opportunity to sign an extension. If he eschews that opportunity and maybe decides to explore his other options in the future, and the Knicks feel like they have a shot, maybe they don't this offseason go for a big trade because they feel like, let's hold off and let's see where we are with Giannis Antetokounmpo if he decides to leave Milwaukee. Now, that's a long shot. You're looking a long time into the future there, but it is something that I think is on the radar of many teams. Next, we got one from Toddy Woody 1330. Todd wants to know, with all the drama hanging over the Grizzlies, does the Knicks front office have any interest in trying to trade for Jaren Jackson Jr.? Yes, I'm sure they do. I'm not really breaking any news there. I think all 29 teams would have interest in trading for Jaren Jackson Jr. The issue there is Memphis making him available. I can't see the Grizzlies making a player like Jaren Jackson Jr. available via trade at this point. He is such an important part of their young core. Yes, they've got a lot going on off the court with Ja Morant, but I don't think they would say, hey, the answer here is to trade Jaren Jackson Jr. One interesting wrinkle, the Knicks have Jaren Jackson Sr. He's been coaching the Westchester Knicks for a while now. And Jackson Sr., obviously Jackson Jr.'s father, and also a member of that San Antonio Spurs team that beat the Knicks in the finals. So there's a connection there. But yeah, the odds are long for the Knicks being able to execute a trade for Jaren Jackson Jr. Johnny Caps 17 wants to know, could the Knicks zag and formulate a multi-season plan to live over the second apron while all other teams move mountains to try to avoid those tax penalties? Johnny is talking about another level of financial penalties if teams spend a certain number on their roster. And I don't know if the Knicks have that plan or don't have that plan, but one thing that I can say pretty confidently, in talking to people who have worked for the Knicks over the last 10 years or so, they all say that Knicks owner James Dolan is not going to spare any expenses when it comes to winning, when it comes to spending money on players, on coaches, executives, front office, what have you. So yes, Dolan has his faults, and we've covered those regularly over the past 10 years or so, but you have to give him credit for being willing to write the checks and spend the money where his executives see fit. So if the Knicks decided to go that route, to live over that second apron and take on those tax penalties, I would think that Dolan wouldn't have an issue with that as long as the results were coming with that, and that would mean the Knicks would have to be a perennial contender for him to put out that kind of money. Got a query here from Al Brown. Al wants to know, you think the Knicks will give Dillon Brooks from Memphis a look? Now, I'm sure that Brooks is the kind of player that people with the Knicks like, defender, rugged defender, plays hard. And Tom Thibodeau, that's his archetype as far as players go. The issue, though, is according to reports, Dillon Brooks reportedly wants a bigger role and, wants to start or wants a bigger role on offense, get more shots. Now, if those are true, the Knicks can't offer Brooks that opportunity unless they make a big trade, trading off several rotation players, which would open up a spot for Brooks. But outside of that, they can't offer Brooks that opportunity. So I would see the Knicks not being able to really get in serious conversations with Dillon Brooks, assuming he does want that expanded role. Got a question from Jeremy X9. Jeremy wants to know if the Knicks were to trade for Karl Towns, would Julius Randle still be on the team next season? Now, it's hard for me to guess who Minnesota would want in a Towns trade if they were to make him available. But I do think in a big picture sense, you've hit on something here, Jeremy, because if the Knicks bring in a player like a Towns, player who's used to having the ball in his hands, taking shots, I think it would have to mean that either RJ Barrett or Julius Randle is moved off in that deal, because I can't see a world where you have Randle, Barrett, Jalen Brunson, and Karl Towns, and you have enough shots, enough touches for everybody to be as effective as they can be. So I would think you would have to move off of either Barrett or Randle in any trade where you're acquiring a player like Karl Towns. So yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow. When you talk about trades of that ilk, you'd have to include much more than either RJ Barrett or Julius Randle in that kind of a trade. You're talking about significant draft capital. You're talking about probably one of Emmanuel Quickley or Quentin Grimes. You're talking about Obi Toppin as well. So it'll be a lot to move out to bring back Karl Towns. But yeah, decisions to make for the Knicks this summer in a big picture sense. You wonder though, would it be Randle or would it be Barrett in one of these deals that brings back a big name player? Got a question from Jason KAT, who wants to know, is there a realistic chance for a Kristaps Porzingis reunion tour? What would it take to get a deal like that done? Now, this hinges on a few things. First of all, what is Washington going to do? New executive Mike Winger, what does he want to do with Kristaps Porzingis? Porzingis has a player option on his deal for next summer. I would assume that if he can get a longer term contract, he's going to go out and get it and eschew that player option. Now, for the Knicks, you would think to bring Porzingis back, you're having to trade Mitchell Robinson and pick or two and some filler, or again, RJ Barrett or Julius Randle and maybe a pick or two and some filler. So you would have to give up some assets to bring Kristaps Porzingis here in a sign and trade. And I just don't think at this point that's a move that the Knicks would likely to execute, because you have this draft capital, you saved it up. I would assume that they go all in on a top player instead of spending some of that capital players and draft picks on a player like Porzingis, who had a very nice season in Washington, could certainly help the Knicks. But I just assume, based on how things have gone, the Knicks don't make two kind of middle of the road or mid to upper road echelon trades. I think they go all in on a top star, and that's why I don't think Porzingis to the Knicks is likely. That'll do it for this week's edition of Begley's Mailbag, but keep those questions coming, because we'll be back with you guys answering your questions about the Knicks and the NBA very soon.